You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Force 13 live, it's 3 PM UTC, 7 PM in Mauritius, where we have two systems in the southwest Indian Ocean that are significantly, substantially even, intensifying right now. And also several other systems in the southern hemisphere that we're going to be covering over the next hour at least. My name's Nathan Foy, it's just me here for the time being. It's nice to see you all again. We were here last night, we're here again today, and I'm here to take any questions that you may have for us this afternoon / evening. So let's first of all, you have to bear with me a little bit because it is just me here at this time, but let's first of all see if we can possibly get a little look at Funani, which is the first system that formed yesterday. It's been a crazy 24 hours, and Funani is a much stronger cyclone right now. It looks like this. There is the latest imagery of Cyclone Funani, which is located just north of Rodrigues. I'm just trying to make out the outline of Rodrigues on this map. I'm not sure I can. Yes, it is just about down there. Difficult to see without looking very closely. Let's just take the imagery off for a minute. You might be able to make out the island now. That's where it is in relation to this storm, which has rapidly intensified in the last 24 hours, or since last night. We're now calling it a Category 2 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. That's winds of 105 miles per hour that we're giving it at the moment because of its fantastic appearance. Quite a bit higher than the other agencies at this time. But I think we're quite confident about that due to its satellite appearance, a massive intensification that's occurred during the course of today, and it is continuing to intensify by the looks of things, possibly getting towards Category 3 by the end of tonight. Mercifully, it is starting now to move towards the southeast. You can see its movement there in those last few frames. Let's just see if we can extend this loop a little bit so that we can see in more detail what's going on in more context. So we're now loading up. This must be, what's this? The last 6 hours of imagery is overlaid now. You can just about make out the island of Rodrigues. It's been getting some significant amounts of rainfall in the last few hours. So general movement, it was moving sort of south-southwest last night, or this morning Mauritius time when we were doing our first live update on the system. But now it is certainly got that east element as it continues towards the island. It's going to make its closest pass to Rodrigues pretty soon. It's about 168 miles away from the island right now. That is in the region of, trying to work that out very quickly indeed, something like 250, maybe a little bit more, 270 kilometers away from Rodrigues. It's probably not going to get too much closer, but it could deliver tropical storm force winds to the island, and failing that, certainly quite a lot of heavy rain and squally conditions possible in the next 24 hours. So that's the first system that we are looking at. Obviously it's the first one that formed, but what else we've got significantly intensifying elsewhere in the basin is Cyclone Gelena, which looks like this. This is the latest imagery of the storm now. Trying to get this to play as well. Maybe not. But we just saw a brief image there. It is starting to develop an eye as well, looking at those latest frames. It's just off the northeastern tip of Madagascar, and you can see the system's been developing there. It's not moving very much at this time, but that is possibly bad news because the forecast track is slowly shifting towards the south, which means that Mauritius may start to have a bigger threat from this particular storm that we're looking at here. Again, intensifying significantly. This could be hurricane equivalent by the end of tonight as well. So we've got the two systems that we are looking at this moment in time. It's certainly warming up very quickly in the southern hemisphere. Let's just see if we can get a zoom out here and get both of the systems so that we can see what's been going on. These are the latest infrared frames. You can quite clearly see that Funani is much the larger system, and it's going to be out of the picture in a day or two, maybe a little bit more, and then Gelena will then move in behind it in its wake towards the Mascarene Islands. The fact that these two systems are much stronger than what was forecasted for this point in time says quite a lot. Funani was only expected, of course the HWRF can quite often be very bullish, but the HWRF was calling for Category 4 status, but after the storm had moved well beyond the island of Rodrigues, and already it's more than halfway there, and it still is in front of the island, hasn't cleared the island yet, and it is almost towards Category 3 already. As for Gelena, they're expecting pretty steady strengthening. It's certainly been a lot more rapid than we were expecting in the last 12 hours. And that is going to push up that peak intensity we expect as it moves through. In the midpoint between where it is right now and Rodrigues is probably where it's going to peak. That's what they've been saying. It could indeed peak near the island of Rodrigues, and it could be a 1-2 punch from both of these two systems. Although, as stated, unless there is a significant south or southwesterly deviation from Funani, it doesn't appear as though anything stronger than the odd tropical storm force wind is going to strike the island. Of course, flooding concerns will of course be prevalent. If you've got any comments or questions for us on the air right now, this is live. It's 7 minutes past 7 in Mauritius. It's 7 past 3 here at Force 13 HQ in the UK. And start your message in the YouTube chat right now with Force 13. And I'll be looking out for anyone who does that. Let's take a look and see what we've got on all of our other windows right now. Okay, this is the JTWC track for Funani. Well, let's first of all, let's just rack that back to the beginning. That's our opening graphic, and then we have these other systems here. This is Invest 96P, which is still active over Australia. It's been going on for days on end, and it is still there and is still producing convection even today. Invest 99P is located just east of Fiji. A big mess going on in the South Pacific right now, with lots of heavy clouds and monsoonal conditions over the whole region. Some areas could get 4 feet of rain in the next 2 weeks over the water. Invest 90P is another element of that feature and is just about to move through just west of Samoa, and will then move towards the eastern islands of Fiji and possibly towards Tonga. It could end up reaching New Zealand later next week, early next week. This is the latest Meteo France track for Funani right now. This should be up to date. That's what they're saying as of 4 PM Mauritius time. As you can see, the wind field stretches pretty much halfway between the storm centre and the island of Rodrigues. So again, it could get a glancing blow from tropical storm force winds As you can see on the left-hand panel there, Port Mathurin is at 40% chance of tropical storm force winds in the next 5 days, mainly from Funani. That percentage chance is going to rise probably even after the storm passes, because as you can see, it's stalling at this time. Many storms do that in this area, and then it's going to sooner or later begin to move off to the south-southeast. And if you've been noting the track from Meteo France, it has moved south a little bit since last night. Initially, the track forecast put it directly over the island of Rodrigues, now taking it slightly south, Mauritius just outside of the cone. That could change. The JTWC track for Funani looks much the same as it always has, really, taking it on a very straightforward projected track towards the southeast and up to 120 miles per hour. According to them, I think it could get much higher than that in the next 24 hours, considering its recent rate of intensification. So it could end up going well beyond 200 kilometers per hour, and that would take it towards Category 4 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. And this is the track from the JTWC for Gelena. Pretty solid agreement between the agencies for these forecast tracks. They're saying an 80 knot peak, which again I think is a little low. So they're expecting Category 1 there. It looks to me at this stage that we'll probably see at least Category 2. And as some models say, even more than that. The HWRF calling for Category 3. We'll see those graphics shortly. Here's some computer models from earlier. This is for Funani. Again, it's pretty straightforward. Don't get overexcited over in Australia. It certainly won't be tropical if that outlier verifies and it gets near Western Australia. This is for Gelena. Again, no distinct threat to Mauritius, but somewhat uncertain. A bit worrisome, the NavGem outlier there, the green line, taking it to the south of the consensus. That is actually probably an old run. So I imagine that the models have shifted south a little bit, probably agreeing with the NavGem now as its general consensus. Here's the HWRF forecast for Funani. Only a brief Category 4, albeit, and not exactly where you would expect. Much further south, they're expecting the peak of this storm, just south of 25 south. To put it in perspective, Rodrigues is at around 19.5 south. And this is the HWRF model run for Gelena. And you can see Category 3 just off the coast of Mauritius, with Mauritius receiving tropical storm force winds in this model depiction. Also, for those curious about Invest 90p, this is the model run for that one. HWRF predicting it to become a brief Category 1 on the Saffir-Simpson scale, possibly Category 3 on the Australian scale. And we just had the refresh on the page there. We'll come straight back to it, skimming by all of these graphics that we've just looked over, and the HWRF graphics. This is the Eastern Pacific. Nothing's going on there, you'll be pleased to know. The Central Pacific and the Joint Typhoon Warning Center region. An overview of everything that's going on right now on the screen. Eagle-eyed viewers might just about make out the remnants of Riley, which are still going in the central South Indian Ocean. Here is a latest Navy image of Funani right now, and this is why we're calling it a Category 2. Fantastic eye wall appearance, an eye temperature not long ago, 2 hours ago now, an eye temperature of +2 degrees Celsius, which indicates certainly a significant storm. We'd have possibly put it up to Category 3 if it wasn't for the nature of the storm's intensification being so rapid that the winds have probably not yet caught up. You can just about make out the island of Rodrigues on this image as well, just to the southwest of the storm's centre, in one of the outer bands, the green area, the last green area of the main storm part. So significant rainfall probably occurring there at this moment in time. If you are on the ground in Rodrigues, might be a bit of a long shot, but if you are there, please make yourself known to the chat section of this video, or you can send us a message. Anyone, by the way, can send us a message through our social mediums, Force13 on Facebook and Twitter, and you can add Fool13 on Skype at extension 9094 on Discord. And finally, a look at Gelena here on the Navy imagery as well. You can also see that eye beginning to take shape, displaced to the southeast of its convection. And some of that is reaching Madagascar as well, so significant rainfall possibly occurring there on the northern tip of Madagascar. Let's go back to some latest imagery of the systems right now. There they are once again, and let's see if we can assess anything new that's going on with the rainfall estimates here. This is, for those who are unfamiliar, the satellite-derived estimated rainfall. I must say this particular imagery is showing the eye starting to get shallower again in relation to Funani. So that's interesting, possibly a sign of the storm's strengthening coming to a close. Just to reiterate what the warnings are, because we haven't actually iterated them yet. The warnings are as follows. It's just for the island of Rodrigues, and there is a Class 2 warning in effect in Rodrigues. That's been the case since 4 o'clock. Class 2 warnings are likely to remain in effect for the foreseeable until the storm passes. If you are watching from Mauritius itself, it really is a wait-and-see game about Gelena. Funani is not going to be a threat to Mauritius, but Gelena could be, especially as we get towards the end of the week. It will probably make its closest pass on Saturday. Now, I believe we had some questions that came in earlier. Let's see what we've got. I'm just tracking back here, trying to find some questions. How long have we been tracking? That's a very vague question. Storms in general, Force 13 has been operating for over 7 years now, since November 2011. Meanwhile, another question here. Should Gelena be watched more closely since it has a higher chance of impacting land? It really depends where you are, but I suppose in almost all counts the answer would be yes, because the only reason why we are covering Funani possibly a little bit more at this moment in time is because it is a more immediate threat to land. It is actually reaching Rodrigues, and Gelena is still around 2 or 3 days out. To reiterate, these are our estimates of the storms right now. We are putting Funani as a Category 2 on the Saffir-Simpson scale because of its fantastic satellite appearance and earlier eye temperature of +2 degrees Celsius. We're putting Gelena at 70 miles per hour, just a little bit higher than the agencies, and likely to become a hurricane equivalent storm later tonight and definitely by the morning, unless something catastrophic happens to its eye wall that it's currently developing. And I think there was another question there. Nope. I don't think there is anymore. I'm sure there was one. But there we are in any case, the two systems depicted. Let's just zoom out again so you can see both of them in relation to the land areas. Funani on the right hand side, followed by Gelena on the top left. A little bit of thunderstorm activity occurring over the Mascarene Islands in the last few frames there. Just some quick pop-up thunderstorms that have left the area now. The two storms themselves are not affecting Mauritius or Réunion. In fact, it's probably the reason why the weather has been pretty settled there in the last 2 days or so. In between the two systems, very stable air by the looks of things over the islands in the vicinity. Only those small scale thunderstorms. So at the top left hand side there, Gelena likely to move towards the south-southeast, trending east over the next few days. Tromeline Island could be affected by this system significantly as well, with tropical storm force winds, and I can't remember exactly how much rainfall is expected there, but possibly up to 100 millimeters I think it was. And then moving towards the southeast. We're eagerly awaiting any further updates on the track of Gelena, because it has shifted south a little bit since this morning, and if that southward trend continues, then it could be making more of a line towards Mauritius than to Rodrigues. Of course, it could do it could do a Salida and pass in between the two, whilst initially looking like it was going to clearly hit one of them, but that one passed through without incident, despite being a very strong storm indeed. But both of them have clearly definable eyes on this imagery. Unfortunately, we don't have the best imagery for this part of the world. 1 hourly imagery from the global satellite here, with 15-minute updates on the estimated rainfall imagery. Just to get a close-up here on, I keep forgetting its name, Gelena. Still delivering some rainfall there to Madagascar, looks like over 10 millimeters per hour along the northern tip. So there could be a flash flooding concern there. No other areas being affected. Agalega just on the right hand side of the storm there to the east. And that is just on the very edge of the storm. You'll be able to see it from there without being affected by it. Scrolling back towards the south, just looking at those thunderstorms that occurred earlier in Mauritius and La Réunion. Mainly diving off the coast quite quickly, but did deliver locally high amounts of rain, not far from Port Louis as a matter of fact. And when you do look at it in this perspective, it is quite close to Cyclone Funani, which is still quite a formidable system and could be on the way to becoming more formidable in the next few hours. We'll wait and see on what's going on with that eye. Now, just not very long ago at all, it tells you a lot about how the imagery is changing all the time. Some new images have just come out there. You can see it looked like the eye was getting shallower, I should say, and now appears to be as it was before. So you can always you need to look at quite a few images to be able to establish a trend, especially when we're looking at these satellite-derived rainfall images. They are not true radar images, so that disclaimer always needs to be attached. A very warm day in Mauritius earlier today. I believe the high temperature was around 33, 34 degrees Celsius. A few more very warm days coming up in Mauritius, especially if Cyclone Gelena misses. And this is sort of the flip side of these storms. Usually on the dry side, which in this case is the western side of both of these systems eventually, particularly with Funani though, the temperature does go up, especially when there are two systems involved, and the dry slot in between can often produce very high temperatures and dry conditions. So the general movement of Funani right now is still towards the southeast. Not particularly quick, and still delivering significant amounts of rainfall to Rodrigues. It would look as though the band that's been moving through Rodrigues in the last 6 hours might be starting to clear. Just a little bit. But still delivering possibly 5 millimeters of rain per hour there. So looking at those last few hours, possibly, let's see, getting on for 40 or 50 millimeters of rain there in the last 6 hours. A little respite looks to be on the way, unless another band forms. There could be one on the way, but at the minute looks like there could be about an hour or two of a gap on the island. Most of the bands are being pushed towards the east. You can see them going off there. Very few going off towards the west, and they're hitting a wall. And so Mauritius is nowhere near being affected by the influence of this storm. If you've got any questions for us, we're here right now to take them. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. And if you've got any observations on the islands, we'd be very pleased to hear from you there as well. You may note the bottom bar every so often goes through all of the Mauritius districts. They're all pretty vague at this stage because Mauritius is fairly small and localized. Weather can change quite considerably, but no warnings are in effect on the main island of Mauritius, and the weather there, at least until Gelena arrives on Saturday, is going to be fairly uniform. And on the left hand side of your screen on the panel, you can see the rest of the naming list for the Southwest Indian Ocean this year. This season, the next name would be Harley, I think it is. And the next name in the Fiji region is Neil, if 90p forms. And you can see just how quickly these systems have intensified on the left-hand side as well, Funani and Gelena there. Let's see if we can check some water vapor imagery of what these systems are doing at this moment in time. Let's see if we can take a look and ascertain any more information out of these. Might have zoomed out just a little bit too much there. So there they are on the water vapor. Mauritius and Réunion you can see quite clearly in a dry slot, apart from those thunderstorms that just burst a few hours ago. But a pretty dry evening there, possibly one or two more isolated thunderstorms to come. And significant thunderstorms pushing off Madagascar at this point. But quite a settled evening in between the two storms. Alright, well, let's get away from that now, and just leaving you with whatever's on the automated service just for a quick moment. Just wonder if we could go and see some more model runs on what's going on all around the southern hemisphere at this time. And I think we have them here. So first of all, looking at the GFS model run, this is as of 6 Zulu, which is 9 hours ago now. So you can see both systems continuing to intensify. The GFS initially having Funani peaking at 941 millibars as it makes its latitudinal equal to Rodrigues, just off to the west, the east, sorry, of Rodrigues, and the Gelena continuing to intensify as well, down to 958 there according to GFS, and then further intensification of Funani, of both systems actually, getting down to the 930s for Funani after passing Rodrigues, and the same too for Gelena as well, 938 there according to the GFS. It does quite often inflate those pressure estimates, but we could be looking at two significant storms there, category 3 or higher, and passing uncomfortably close to Mauritius there. And then passing very close to Rodrigues in the case of Gelena, much closer than Funani would be, probably as a category 2 or maybe high-end category 1 weakening. Weakening's only gradual though. Gelena continues to live probably until that point there, which would be next Friday, and then the remnants die off somewhere just off the coast of Western Australia. Very long range, not much going on, just these two systems, so it doesn't look like anything's going to happen after these Southwest Indian Ocean systems according to the GFS. Let's see if we could possibly take a look at the ECMWF model. So here they are. That's the analysis. Where's the forecast? Here we go onto the forecast from the ECMWF. Pretty similar, to be honest. Just see if we can try and get the pressure readings here. So you can see down to 970 for Gelena, just north of Mauritius. That is on Saturday morning local time. That's at least a category 1. I would say it ought to probably be a bit stronger than what that's depicting based on what we've seen so far. And the ECMWF takes Gelena into a very strong extratropical, a broad extratropical system drifting towards the southeast, blocked by a high. Let's check the NavGen, because that was a southern outlier for, or used to be a southern outlier for Gelena, and you can see them both developing again here, very close to Mauritius. Tropical storm force winds quite possible there. Same too for Rodrigues. That's pretty much everything of note there. So let's take a look now at the the South Pacific Ocean as well. We'll get there shortly. Just bringing it up on the screen here. So now here's a look at the South Pacific Ocean, sorry. New model run just coming out at this time. We don't have the full run yet, so we're going to rely on the previous run for now. So let's again take a look at the estimated central pressure forecast. So you can see 90p. It's going to be a very disorganized system all the way, to be honest. Fiji may not even see significant amounts of rain from 90p itself. There is at the minute, I would say, but later on when it's intensifying, it looks like most of the rainfall will be displaced to the east there, and quite a lot of it as well. Continuing to push south, turning post-tropical, just passing the North Island of New Zealand. And then in the long range there, two other systems. One of them is huge. The one on the left-hand side moving through Vanuatu and New Caledonia. That is very long range, probably not going to happen the way you see it here, and maybe two other systems after that, but that is very long range. As for 96p, you can see it emerging off the coast of Australia there, and not doing very much at all, really struggling to have a circulation at all, but it could end up contributing to this massive flow of moisture that's moving through the southern Pacific over the next 2 weeks. Elsewhere in the world, I don't believe there is anything else going on. I'll just do a quick check away from the screen to see if there is any unexpected possibilities in the Western Pacific or in the Eastern Pacific, which there sure better not be. GFS hinting that there could be a short-lived tropical cyclone in the Central Pacific long range in mid-February. That I wouldn't take with much credence at all. The North Indian Ocean, I think, was empty. Is going to remain empty for the foreseeable. And the rest of the Northern Hemisphere should also remain fairly quiet. At least in tropical terms. In just a moment we'll go back to the very latest imagery of Funani, which is the most immediate threat to land right now. And we are continuing to watch both of these two systems as they develop, and they have been developing very rapidly in the last 12 to 24 hours. If you've just joined us, let's take a look now at the very latest. This is what we've got. So Cyclone Funani is located around 350, I think it was, 350 kilometers north of Rodrigues, northeast. A little bit less than that now. Much less than that. About 270 kilometers northeast of Rodrigues at this time, and is moving southeast. So we expect, actually, you know, you look at the imagery there, you can just about make out the island of Rodrigues. If you can't, let me just try and draw a line here from the center of the storm here to the island of Rodrigues. So you can see both of them marked there. Rodrigues is on the bottom end of that line. And you can see the center of the storm, how far it is away. That was how many miles? 167 miles right now, which is around 270 kilometers. So it's very close to making its closest approach. And that is potentially good news, because it's going to start moving away from Rodrigues, and Funani is not going to be, probably by tomorrow morning, the threat will then turn squarely towards Gelena. Just cancel that line there and see if we can get from start to finish in the last 6 hours how far the storm has moved and in what direction exactly. So I'm just trying to grab the beginning point here and the end point, because sometimes our eyes can play tricks on us. So you can see quite clearly there that's a southeastward movement in the last 6 hours. And it has moved 32 miles. You do the math. That is just over 5 miles per hour, 8 kilometers per hour. So it's a pretty slow moving storm. And on its current trajectory, if it was to keep going, it would end up going right the way down there, quite a distance away from Rodrigues. If we were just to keep that line on the screen and draw another line to its closest approach, the intersect of that line there, getting all technical now, would be 154 miles from the storm if it was to continue in that same direction. By the time the storm reaches that point there, it will have reached its closest point to Rodrigues, and then it will be going away. So that will happen pretty soon. Now, I think we've got some more questions, have we? So, first of all, is activity normal for the Southwest Indian Ocean at this time of year? It certainly is. This kind of thing does happen quite commonly, really. Maybe not quite as many storms as we've seen so far for this time of year, but it is an active season in the Southwest Indian Ocean, and we were expecting an active season in the whole southern hemisphere this time around. And a fun, interesting fact, maybe an obvious fact, but interesting nonetheless. There has never been an occasion ever in which the first 2 months of the year, January and February, haven't produced a Category 3 storm somewhere in the world. And obviously it would appear that it's going to be stuck to this year as well, no exception, if it continues to intensify towards Category 3. And if this one doesn't, Gelena could. Again, to reiterate the warning that's in effect, a Class 2 warning for Rodrigues. We'd also like to thank the phone expert for thanking us with their fantastic contribution as well in the last few minutes. And they say, keep on saving lives. Well, you know, it really gives us pride here at Force 13 to know that we do in the first place. And from anecdotal evidence, we know that we have in the past from many different storm situations all around the world, and we know that in some of these areas of the world communications aren't quite as good, or the media isn't quite as good in many people's opinions, and we like to be a unbiased, factual and calm influence on the media that goes out when it comes to these systems. We also had, what else did we have here? Is anyone else with me? No, no one else is with me at this time. It's just me here in the studio, and that is fine with me as we continue to watch what's going on. So we've got this system here, but this is Funani as it continues to move towards the southeast. Let's see if we can construct some tracks here and see if we can get to the nitty-gritty of what's going on with Gelena right now. So again, we're looking at a 6-hourly loop here. Let's see if we can begin by trying to find where the storm center is at the beginning of this loop. I can tell you right now it hasn't moved very much at all in 6 hours, so I'd say it's somewhere around here at the beginning of this loop. And by the end of the loop, it really hasn't moved very much at all, just about 9 miles in 6 hours. So that is that's a speed of 1.5 miles per hour. 2 kilometers per hour is its current movement, and it's moving south. So very slow moving at this time, probably waiting for Funani to get out of the way before it starts moving off in earnest towards the southeast. I don't think it would be a good idea to extrapolate its current track, because if you base it off that 6 hours of information, it would end up going down there, and that's just not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. It will start moving in earnest towards that direction, towards Mauritius or Rodrigues, or possibly shooting the gap in between the two, just like Celida did. So that's what we're looking at there for the next few days. But realistically, the track of Gelena will probably be something a bit like this, and then moving off right the way down there. Something like that is a possibility. That is not set in stone. That could change. A stronger storm is likely to trend further south. So that's why, another reason why we are concerned about Gelena and its intensification at this time. You got 15 minutes to send in any further questions that you might have for us before we're probably going to finish up here, because nothing much new is happening at this time. Here at Force 13 HQ, we continue to watch at all hours what's going on, but we don't want to waste people's time by saying that nothing's going on. So I think we'll be finishing up here in 15 minutes and continue to produce imagery and text updates on our social platforms, as well as the odd regular video update, which we'll probably be doing later on this evening. If you just joined us and wondering what the mess of lines is, it was just our little indicators from earlier again, that the intersect of those lines there, let's just get rid of that. How do we get rid of lines on here? Okay, let me press some buttons. There it goes. So we're just left with these two white lines here. You can see, so the intersect there, that is the closest point to Rodrigues if the storm continues to move on that trajectory towards the southeast as it has been doing for 6 hours. By that point, once it reaches that point or similar, it will then be moving away from Rodrigues and the threat will considerably decrease. As it stands, a Class 2 warning is in effect, and oh, it's back again. Class 2 warning is in effect for Rodrigues, and that will continue to be in effect for the rest of tonight probably. By morning, we will probably see a significant improvement of conditions on Rodrigues as the storm leaves the area. And that is the latest. Let's see if we can just grab some more of that other imagery again. This was a look earlier. That's not working out so well. So let's bring us back now to some more imagery. We've actually got... what have we got here? This is the latest Navy imagery of Gelena. Just went by there. We'll come back to that a little bit later. We'll do another summary of what's going on right now. This is Invest 96P, which is located over Australia, still surviving as an invest somehow, delivering huge amounts of rain and not helping the Queensland flooding situation. Invest 99P is located just off the eastern islands of Fiji. Oh, it's gone back again. 99p, and 90p is just to the northeast, not far from Samoa, to the northwest of Samoa in the South Pacific. All part of this big monsoonal mess that's going on in the South Pacific at this time, and is delivering huge amounts of rain over the oceanic waters. The Met France track for Funani looks like this. This was their 4 PM update, taking the storm to the southeast, intensifying in the next 12 hours and peaking either tonight or tomorrow, turning post-tropical by Friday night into Saturday. The forecast for Gelena looked like this for Meteo France, taking it into an intense tropical cyclone, indicated by the dark red cyclone icon, as it makes its closest approach to Mauritius on Saturday and to Rodrigues on Sunday. Early hours of Sunday actually, Saturday night into Sunday for Rodrigues. The JTWC track looks what we've been seeing, what the storms have been exhibiting in the last few hours, have been much beyond what these agencies have been forecasting, and I think they're going to have to revise their intensity forecasts upwards as we continue to go on in this situation. As it stands, the JTWC are expecting 120 miles per hour from Funani. That is 190 kilometers per hour. That's sustained winds. For Gelena, they're expecting a peak wind speed of 90 miles per hour, 140 kilometers per hour sustained winds, and that will occur as it makes its closest approach to Mauritius and Reunion as well, but not really being affected, and Rodrigues. Both could receive hurricane conditions as a worst case scenario. Not likely at this time, but possible. Tropical storm force winds are considered to be likely for both northern Mauritius and for Rodrigues. And that will be on Saturday night into Sunday. Computer models, looking at Funani there, pretty straightforward. Turns post-tropical long before it reaches any of those other land masses. Australia, Antarctica, long gone by then. For Gelena, it's a range really anywhere from St. Brandon to just north of Mauritius. That is the model spread, and that is the amount of uncertainty. Add a few miles either side of that as well. The HWRF model forecast wants this to happen. For Funani to become a Category 4, but not until late in its life. When it goes to 26 degrees south, they're expecting Category 4 status. For Gelena, Category 3, just as it passes Mauritius on Saturday. Invest 90P, the one in the Pacific, could become a Category 1 hurricane equivalent storm on the Saffir-Simpson scale, Category 3 on the Australian scale, according to the HWRF. That is supposed to be the National Hurricane Centre's Atlantic outlook. Doesn't matter anyway, nothing's going on, nor in the Eastern Pacific, nor in the Central Pacific. The JTWC area is shown here with both of these systems in the southwest Indian Ocean. And Invest 90P on the right hand side, that's the Pacific system that has the highest chance of developing. It's marked as medium. Latest image of Funani, look at that. The eye becoming even more clear in those latest frames. A decent eye wall into the -60s clearly, and much more of that, and we'll be calling it a Category 3 on the Saffir-Simpson scale if it holds on for a little longer. Huge cloud tops to the southwest of the eye into the -80s. So that is looking pretty fearsome right now. Rodrigues still well on the edge of the main core of the storm, out of harm's way at this time. However, rainfall could still be a major issue on the island. If not today, then later on this week. And there's an image of Gelena. Its eye is also coming out in the latest frames here. And another strong cloud top performance there on the eastern side of its eye. Again into the -80s. That is now probably a Category 1 on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Those are pretty recent images, not as recent as we'd like. That is still over an hour ago on both of those images. The only imagery that we've got that is more up to date is the imagery of the satellite indicated rainfall, and that doesn't show it so well, the storm's intensity, but it does show you quite well how the rainfall is doing. Let's just grab that latest image there. So that is the 3 PM UTC image, that's the 7 PM Mauritius time image of Funani. Let's probe the eye temperature and see what it is here. -13, that's just about on the edge. I think it's a little bit warmer towards the center, can't get a good reading. -9. Zoom in on this. This pixel here. -9. So the eye temperature being -9. Southeastern side, there's a fracture in the eye there. -62. And on the left hand side there, the most intense part of the eye, -81. Now, if you don't know what those numbers mean, I don't blame you. It is quite a complicated business working out the satellite imagery and tying it to an intensity, but much more of that if it continues for another hour or two, I should imagine. Then we're looking at a Category 3 on the Saffir-Simpson scale there. As for Gelena, again we're looking at a very significantly developing eye, although it does look a bit more messy. The southwestern side there, real mess. It looks like the eye has come away. But in the center of the eye, the temperature is -18. Getting better in any case, and surely enough to call it a Category 1 on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale. Both those systems depicted on the screen here, and that is probably going to be our last look in this hour of the whole region. You can see how expansive Funani is. To be honest, it's twice the size of Gelena. And if you do look very carefully, just a little bit to the right there, there's a tiny little piece of convection. That is the remnants of Cyclone Riley from last week off the coast of Australia. So, in summary, both of these systems are a threat to the Mascarene Islands. Rodrigues in particular, the threat will likely decrease substantially from Funani by the end of the night, and the threat will increase from Gelena during the course of the next 3 days. It will be felt on Mauritius probably first thing Saturday morning, or maybe overnight Friday into Saturday morning. The main part of the storm Gelena will pass Mauritius during Saturday and will arrive at Rodrigues late on Sunday and will probably blow through by Monday morning. Class 2 warnings still in effect for Rodrigues, and Mauritius and Rodrigues need to continue to remain very vigilant about both of these storms right now. Mauritius for Gelena in particular, because as we watch it right now, if the worst case scenario occurs and we get hurricane conditions on Mauritius, it is possible. There are 2 and a bit days to prepare. And that is pretty much my closing note here on Force 13 Live. We were thinking of going on a bit longer, but I think we've discussed everything and we don't want to do it to death. And there we have it. If you've got any questions for us on social media in the meantime, when we go off the air, you can send a message to Force 13 on Facebook or Twitter. Search Force 13 all in text. You can also add my personal account on Skype, Fool13, and add extension 9094 on Discord. We also have a server on there as well on Discord if you want to take part in that and discuss the tropical weather with fellow storm trackers. I believe that is in our description on this YouTube video as it stands right now. That's all from us tonight. We'll have more updates on the YouTube channel as they're needed. But leave in little doubt that we'll be producing many updates on these systems as they progress over the next few hours and days. That's it from us for now. We'll see you again soon. Have a good evening.